Hello, Jörg.
Hey, you can see me. Wow.
Yes, yes, with a green background.
Yes, it's just I just recorded something, so I had the chance to play your game for far too short time so far. I will continue to play it this evening.
Cool.
Um, but I already noticed that you have changed a lot of things if you are coming from the old Amplitude strategy games. You're trying now to reach the real big civilization audience, obviously.
I mean, we're definitely trying to talk to more people. It's, it's uh, I think so. The bet when we created Amplitude, um, so we believed that the forex genre was an amazing genre, but far too few people were playing it, and we wanted to find a way to introduce more people to that genre because we believe the mechanics were amazing, the immersion was
Mhm.
absolutely stunning, and yet at the time, and putting civilization a bit aside, most of the forexes you were saying, so we're talking about 10 years ago, we're definitely focusing just on mechanics and not really on the rest. And our bet was, let's try to make forex games we would be proud to show to our friends and girlfriends,
Mhm, mhm.
and future wife for me. So and was like, hey, look at what I'm playing. Come and play with me. When
Mhm.
before, when I was playing forex, I was more like hiding my screen. No, 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 don't worry about it. I was more or
Mhm.
less ashamed.
Okay.
And by being proud to show your game, you can bring more people in, and then and then it's the same for them. So it's a virtuous circle.
Mhm.
So the immersion, in a way, was already strong before because of the mechanics, but it is stronger with all the arts and all the efforts we put around it.
Mhm.
So yeah, it is definitely I think a huge step. Definitely from the previous games, but it's true. By going with the historical genre, you go much wider.
Mhm.
And you
Mhm.
can appeal to a lot of people, and you want to make sure they can find a right accessibility to it, which is not finished in the game today. Actually, Jean-Maxime is still working a lot on that aspect today, so we
Mhm.
still have
Mhm. Mhm.
a lot to come.
Still, you kept, of course, various elements, and the most obvious to me is the actual battles being played out in the surrounding countryside, but in a more traditional style where you can, yeah, use your units turn-wise instead of doing the battles like Civilization does in the map itself between the armies themselves.
Mm.
So. You obviously don't feel that this takes away too much flow or speed from the game if you switch to those detailed battles.
So the the spirits that we had with the original game, the original Endless series, was always to make sure that the battles had to be played in around 2 minutes. So it's that's the time we gave for Endless Legend and the Space One, and I think it was slightly expanded to Endless Space Two for maybe 2 minutes and a half, but that's it. And
Mhm,
why? Because we want people to enjoy multiplayer games and not have to wait for their friends for 15 minutes for them to
mhm,
play a
mhm,
battle. So that always has been our spirit, and at the same time, we always had a focus on our games is to try to make sure you don't have to handle too many entities in the game.
mhm,
Entities,
mhm, mhm,
by that I mean cities and units. That's why it is an army-based game and not a unit-based game.
mhm,
And just with that, you gain a lot of time, and the game is a lot more efficient, and the
mhm,
immersion is even better actually. So
mhm,
you're
mhm,
not boggled down in details of okay, where do I move that unit or
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that Civ system is very accessible in that, one unit moving and attacking. Our system requires a slight bit of abstraction because
mhm,
yes,
mhm,
your units come together to form armies, and then when they go to war, then we have this secondary game where the battle area unfolds.
mhm,
It's our job to make that entire system as accessible as possible. But once you understand it, I firmly believe it offers unparalleled levels of depth in terms of the configuration of your armies, the terrain, like where it takes place, the dynamic of the battle, who attacked, who is coming from where, from what angle, what units, which class, what veterancy, what. I mean, I have like I think I have close to 1,000 hours on the game, and there are still moments where I mean, like every battle feels unique. And I love that about our game.
There's something in history that people tend to forget. Sometimes when you look at the history of battles, you always look at the battle when it starts, but when you forget, like before it started, someone picked more or less a place to open the fight, and choosing where to fight or where to accept to fight.
And maneuvered what force
was
to bring
decisive,
in,
and that's what made the whole battle. And that's what I think that's what happens with Humankind. Is it's all about where will I accept to take that fight. So I think that's an amazing thing. And what's interesting as well, it's sometimes all about the fight. It's all about I have to hold on long enough for my reinforcement to come in. It's not about winning. It's about holding, waiting. And that's why you have this whole system where after like 3 rounds of battles, the battle
and
stops.
then the whole round goes on.
So to leave you enough time to bring reinforcements. And sometimes and with modern ages, you can really imagine this whole kind of World War I type of things with this whole battlefields spanning over across half of the continent. It's just fascinating. So
by the way, you don't need to convince me. I love those textual battles since Ultima 3, for when they first switched to this arena kind of turn-based battle. How many units can there be in one battle with reinforcements and such?
There is no limit per se right now. We probably need to put one at some point regarding performance. But right now, the number of rounds and the size of the battle area is a function of the number of units that have been added to the battle since it began.
So it can grow in size.
It can grow in size and over time, and it can really grow. So, but right now we don't have an upper limit, and of course we're going to have some edge cases, and we're going to have players that try to create the biggest battle possible. So this is something we need to be aware of. But no, there is no limit right now.
And in theory, there's also no limit of how many turns the battle will take. So you could have not a battle, but more like a whole war, which just doesn't end in one place.
As long as the battle conditions are not over, basically, if nobody wins, basically, or nobody loses, then yeah, it goes on to the
of course. I'm very intrigued by the avatar system, which is not yet in the game, at least not for me to try out. So I will have 1 or 2 questions expanding on that if possible. What I find very interesting is the combination of a sort of I think you called it an archetype for the behavior of my avatar, and then also you have those passive bonuses and you have those biases. Yeah. So, but all this is meant for me to be in the game of a friend or of other persons. But what about the AI factions I see in the game? Could I do a Genghis Khan avatar for me to play against? What are your plans there? Or could I play against myself, for example, a former incarnation of myself?
So against yourself, no. As it is today, it's for the release. It won't be the case. It's being quite asked, so I think it's probably something we'll have to consider.
The question would be: would you feel good or bad to win against yourself? That's
Good question. Yeah.
that's a tough
I wouldn't like to lose against myself. I would like to win against myself.
Yeah, but then winning against yourself is losing against yourself. That's the problem.
No, it's interesting. So yes, today, as for your incarnation, you have only one. And it was to make it easy to share yourself and say, well, you can, I'm friend with you, and then I could play against you. It's very easy for me to play against you and not have to pick which incarnation of yourself. But it is being quite asked, so it's something we'll definitely have to consider for later to see what we can do for that.
And the AI opponents themselves, will I be able to pick what kind of AI I will play against, or will that be randomized?
So we'll have some archetypes that will be created for you at the beginning of the game, and basically plus people plus influencers, plus all of that, and again through modding, you'll be able to have new leaders. You can face with their own archetypes, bases, and all of that.
The next thing I would like to know more about is the religion system, because in Civilization, religion can be fun, but it can also be a nuisance, especially if you have the wrong race or civilization for it, and if you do not like this kind of gameplay. So I'm wondering how important the feature is if I do not want to think too much about a state religion and getting those holy sites and so on. Can I ignore it, or is it more like, oh yeah, of course you can do whatever you want, but if you want to play well and successfully, you have to look out for this kind of things?
Yes, you have to look out for it. Religion is not an option. I mean, it is if you. I mean, there are civics that allow you to go atheist, and then there is no religion. I mean, you don't have a state religion, but there's always an interaction with the faith and religion system, because religion is like cultural influence. It travels, it converts, it grants bonuses. And when you are the religion leader, or
you can pick the next,
you can pick the next tenet first. And the tenets right now is probably something that we need to still balance a bit, because right now, I won't say which, but there's a few ones in the right conditions that really lift you up really high. So it's a rather simple system, when you have enough people, you start a religion. When it's got enough followers, you reach a threshold and then you unlock a tenet, and you produce faith in holy sites that then make your religion travel. It's simple. It's not at the center of humankind. But I wouldn't go as far as to ignore it, because the game will not let you ignore it. Some religion-based actions are mandatory actions, put it this way. So it's not like you have to invest all your time and energy in it, but you still have to at least understand the basics.
And it's great soft power again, which again reminds you to real history.
Okay, two last quick questions. First, don't take this personal in any way, but I have felt, not by playing myself, because I did not play so far into the game yet, but by watching into your trailers, that the game world, the game map gets pretty crowded. So there is city everywhere later on. This might be realistic, but won't be players confused by having too much going on the map?
So just on that, on earlier builds of the game, it was easier to span the whole world with cities.
Okay.
So it's less the case today.
Okay.
But we make it so it's the cities are smaller. Yet the feeling we want to give to the player is that when you first start the game, it is kind of the Garden of Eden. it's all lush and beautiful, and by the time as all this as humankind grows, basically, the world is more like built and I wouldn't say civilized, but it's not as beautiful maybe as it was in the sense of nature. So, and I think it's important to have that feeling.
It was part of tuning the experience overall, I would say. I mean, I think we, just like everyone, we fantasized about those sprawling metropolises, in the 4X game. And I still love the idea. And, if you play for 700 turns, you're probably going to end up with that anyway. But the scoping back on city size also came from a general balancing effort for every choice to matter. I really want you to, each quarter should matter to you and compel you to go to the next turn, etc.
And not only spamming the end turn and bigger and bigger.
As soon as you start spamming the end turn button, then you're in the wrong. You need to at least stop and think once or twice before you hit that button, and ideally more. But when it's just a matter of clicking, it's boring.
Yeah, I agree. And the very last question would just be, I know that I collect fame, but are there specific goals, victory conditions, apart from having the largest fame in the end?
So, fame, it's just a compilation of a lot of different elements. So it was just a way to easily track, all these elements. But yes, as you may have seen, when you go in your Empire screen, it's all about, having, if you prefer, that economic path or that military path or that, scientific path. It's all about that, basically. And so,
yeah, I mean, excuse me, we were talking earlier about, the different victory possibilities, excuse me, again, in Civ, in the late game. In Humankind, at first you look at it and you're like, oh, well, there's a unique victory condition. And you're like, oh, that's awesome. It's simple. And then after a while, you're like, well, yeah, but doesn't that limit me? And in fact, what you learn playing the game is that the condition may be one, but the ways to achieve it are so numerous and so non-linear, because you have 7 affinities that you can earn era stars in, right? Then you have 3 levels of rewards in each of those, and then you have the ones from your affinity that grant you double reward, meaning that at any point during the game, and especially when you transition into a new era and pick a new culture, you can adapt your strategy, your tactics, short, mid, long term, and then you discover the second layer of the game, which is, oh, well, thank God there's only one fame system, and now I'm starting to see opportunities longer ahead to catch up, and that's really like the second step in the game. So overall, I mean, we've had some concerns also along the way, but we're as confident as ever in terms of
and for us, it has always been about the whole journey, and that fame system is all about the journey, to really try to score your journey throughout the game, not just the end point.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. That was very interesting. Good luck with finishing the game.
Thank you very much. I hope you play some more. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Cheers.